This morning, I woke up before the sun again. At 102 years old, sleep doesn't hold me the way it once did. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that hums in your ears. The wooden boards beneath my slippers creaked as I walked to the kitchen, and I ran my hand along the wall the way I always do. I like to feel where I am. I like to remember that I'm still here. My name is Clara Whitfield. I am 102 years old. I live alone in a small wooden house in Virginia. I have outlived my husband, my sisters, most of my friends, and even one of my children. When you live this long, you attend more funerals than birthday parties. You collect memories the way others collect antiques. And if there is one thing I have watched people misunderstand again and again, it is love. When I was a young girl, I believed love was a feeling that arrived like a thunderstorm. Loud, electric, impossible to ignore. I thought love meant your heart racing and your knees trembling. I thought it meant never going to bed angry and always feeling certain. I was wrong. I met my husband Thomas in the summer of 1942. The world was on fire. Boys were becoming soldiers faster than they were becoming men. He had dust on his boots and fear behind his smile, though he tried to hide it. When he asked me to dance at a church social, my palms were sweating so much I thought he might notice. That first night, I felt that thunderstorm. The spark, the drama, the breathless magic. But do you know what I remember most now? Not the spark. I remember the winter of 1957, when our pipes froze and we had no money to fix them. I remember Thomas waking before dawn, his hands red and cracked, trying to thaw the lines himself so the children could have warm water. I remember him pretending he wasn't exhausted. Love is quieter than we think. The world tells you love is passion. But passion fades like the color in old curtains. What remains is something steadier, something deeper, something you build brick by brick on ordinary Tuesdays. Thomas and I fought. Oh, we did. There were nights we went to bed facing opposite walls. There were months when money was tight and patience was tighter. I once told him in anger that I could have chosen better. That sentence lived between us for years. People think love dies in betrayal or tragedy. But most love erodes from small, careless words repeated over time. Tiny cuts, tiny silences, tiny prideful decisions not to apologize. If I could sit across from my younger self, I would take her hands and say this: choose kindness over being right. Being right has never warmed an empty bed. In my 70s, Thomas fell ill. It was slow at first. Misplaced keys, forgotten names. Then it became forgetting entire conversations, forgetting where he was, forgetting me sometimes. Do you know what it feels like when the person who held your hand through childbirth looks at you like a stranger? It feels like disappearing while still alive. That was when I learned what love truly is. It is staying. It is spoon-feeding soup to a man who once built you a porch with his bare hands. It is answering the same question 20 times without raising your voice. It is grieving someone who is still breathing. When Thomas passed away, I did not cry the way people expected. I had been saying goodbye in small pieces for years. His absence was loud, but it was honest. Now I sit in this house alone. The clock ticks. The wind moves through the trees. Sometimes I speak out loud just to hear a voice. And yet I am not bitter, because love did not fail me. My expectations did. So many people chase intensity. They leave marriages because the butterflies are gone. They abandon relationships because things feel different. Of course they feel different. Everything changes. That is the one promise life keeps. At 102, I can tell you this. Love is not something you feel every day. It is something you decide every day. You decide to forgive. You decide to stay curious about the person across from you. You decide to listen instead of preparing your defense. You decide to reach across the bed even when pride tells you not to. I once met a young woman at the grocery store. She couldn't have been more than 30. She recognized me from church and asked how Thomas and I stayed married for over 60 years. I told her, "We never both gave up on the same day." She laughed, but I was serious. There were days I was tired of trying, days he was distant and stubborn, days when I wondered what life would look like if I had chosen differently. But somehow, when one of us weakened, the other carried the weight. That is love, not perfection, not constant happiness, not fireworks. Carrying each other through seasons neither of you expected. After Thomas died, I had to learn how to love differently. Loving the memory of a man is not the same as loving the man himself. Memory is softer. It edits out the arguments. It polishes the rough edges. But real love includes the rough edges. I sometimes sit in his old chair and close my eyes. I can almost hear his breathing. I remember the way he cleared his throat before speaking, the way he squeezed my hand twice instead of once. And I realized something that took me a century to understand. Love is not possession, it is stewardship. You are not given a person to keep forever. You are given them to care for while you can. That truth would have saved me years of fear. I used to be terrified of losing him. I would imagine accidents, illnesses, disasters. I wasted so many beautiful afternoons worrying about a future that eventually came anyway. If you are listening to me now, holding someone you love close, please hear this. Do not spend your present fearing its end. You will survive the end. Humans are stronger than they believe. I survived burying my husband. I survived burying friends. I survived watching my body weaken and my reflection change into someone I barely recognize. You will survive. But you cannot relive today once it is gone. There is another thing people misunderstand about love. They think it is about finding the right person. It is not. It is about becoming the right person. In my 30s, I was sharp-tongued, quick to judge, quick to assume. I thought maturity would arrive automatically with age. It does not. You must chase it. You must confront your pride, your insecurities, your need to control. Thomas did not change me with lectures. He changed me with patience, with steady presence, with an example I eventually grew ashamed not to match. And that is something else I've learned. Love transforms quietly, not through dramatic declarations, but through daily imitation. You begin to soften where they are soft. You begin to strengthen where they are strong. You begin to see yourself reflected in their eyes, and you either rise to meet that reflection or shrink from it. I chose, slowly, to rise. At 102, I no longer move quickly. My hands tremble. My steps are careful. But my mind walks through decades with surprising clarity. I can see every version of myself layered inside this old body. The nervous bride, the overwhelmed mother, the resentful wife, the grieving widow, and the calm woman I am now. If I could give you one final truth about love, it would be this. Love is not meant to complete you. It is meant to reveal you, the worst parts, the best parts, the parts you hide from the world. Thomas saw me at my ugliest moments, and he stayed. Not because I deserved it every time, but because he had decided long ago that love was not a fair-weather commitment, and I stayed for him. There is an image people have of long marriages. They picture hand-holding on porches and synchronized rocking chairs. They do not picture slammed doors. They do not picture silent dinners. They do not picture exhaustion. But those moments are part of the tapestry, too. The beauty of lasting love is not that it avoids damage. It is that it repairs it, over and over. When I walk through this house, I see scratches on the table where our children did homework. I see a crack in the hallway wall from when we moved furniture carelessly. I see faded paint and uneven floors, and I do not wish it were perfect. Its imperfections prove it was lived in. So does love. If your relationship has scars, do not assume it is broken beyond repair. Scars mean healing has already begun. At 102, I do not crave romance. I crave connection. I crave honesty. I crave the simple comfort of being understood without explanation. That is what we built, Thomas and I. Not excitement, but understanding. And understanding is a fortress. The world moves faster now. People swipe past each other like disposable photographs. They measure worth in convenience and compatibility quizzes. But no quiz can prepare you for loss. No algorithm can teach you patience. No app can build resilience. Only time can do that. And time requires commitment. I am not saying stay where you are harmed. I am not saying endure cruelty. But I am saying this: do not abandon something good simply because it has become ordinary. Ordinary is where love does its deepest work. Tonight, I will turn off the lights in this old wooden house and climb into a bed meant for two. I will rest on my side, as I always have. The other side will remain empty, but it will not feel empty to me. It will feel full of decades, full of laughter, full of arguments resolved, full of hands held in hospital rooms, full of forgiveness given when it was hard. I have lived 102 years, and if I have learned anything at all, it is this: love is not about how it begins. It is about how you choose to continue. Choose gently, choose bravely, choose with humility. Because one day you may wake up in a quiet house, run your hand along the wall to remind yourself you are still here, and realize that the greatest treasure you ever held was not the excitement, it was the endurance.